I'm always reminded, and I like to remind the groups that I speak to, is that no matter how many times people come before you, we're doing what we're doing right now together. My ability to hold the space and to speak something that will speak into your life is direct in correlation to your ability to be open to have your life spoken into. This is not something that's magic, though it feels magical sometimes. There is a principle at work here. There is an activity that is unfolding that is our service, and that service is unfolding through the music that has been so lovingly created. Can we give Tyler and Rob another hand? Tyler's responsible for this next part that we're going to do. Is everybody just take a look at your neighbor just for a moment. And I really want you, I don't know how much you're able to take in sometimes what, and it's okay if you have a three-way. That happens. And so as you look at your neighbor, I want you to take in what Tyler just said to us. And say this to your neighbor: I'm so proud of who you are. I'm so proud of who you are. And you don't need to know the business. You can take that in. And just know that the universe, speaking through your brother or sister that's with you, is saying that to you. Say that again. I'm so proud of who you are. I'm so proud of who you are. I didn't know we'd make it this far. I didn't know we'd make it this far. You are a divine emanation of the Most High. You are a divine emanation of the Most High. You are fully capable of achieving your dreams. You are fully capable of achieving your dreams. You are what plenitude, joy, and love looks like in human form. You are what plenitude, love, and I love you. I love you. And you can't do anything about it. You give a high five or you give a hug, whatever you feel like. Really, it's just an opportunity to connect. Because sometimes we'll go into spiritual community and we may not even really have the opportunity to have a conversation with each other. Patricia and Jessica and everybody here does such a good job of getting us in and getting us out so that we can manage the operations of Soul Center. But sometimes we just want to take a little extra time to connect. And so I'm grateful to be able to do that. For those of you that do know me and those of you that don't, I'm a practitioner at Agape International Spiritual Center where I'm on staff, and Reverend Michael would always appreciate if I were to tell you that he appreciates you, that he loves you, that he's thinking about you, that he holds you in his prayers as a part of the greater Agape community. In addition to that, I had Reverend Keith with me this morning because I had him on pulpit rotation. I get to do that with him sometimes. And so we get to trade places. And so we were really a wonderful example of this one thing being in many places. That Agape is not simply this building that was once upon a time at 5700 Buckingham Parkway, and that was once upon a time on Olympic in Santa Monica, and was once upon a time in another building in Santa Monica, but also has communities that are spreading out around the world. Now we're at the Saban Theater. Now we have an affiliate community here out in Orange County. We've got another community in Orange County. We've got another community in the Bay Area. Agape has continued to realize that there is a greater vision that is emerging through our community, and you are what that vision looks like. So you got to give yourself some love. You got to give yourself some appreciation. Sometimes I'm walking around Agape and I run into some of you who have come up, I guess it is up north, for a couple of hours, and it's always wonderful to see you. And all of that brings us to my topic today. My topic, after hearing from Jessica that you guys were under the subject of make your own luck, it reminded me of a sermon series that Reverend Michael did a long time ago. And so I sat with that observation. I didn't go back and watch all of it, but I just remembered what stayed with me. And I thought about how often certain things are completely changed in your mind by an experience. Sometimes the idea or a circumstance or an experience completely changes the definition of something to you, or maybe what something looks like. And so when we come together in this community, I hope that we are all in recognition of absolutely one thing, that there is something more than just this human physical existence. And if we're questioning that, it's a great opportunity for us to explore it. There's no better place, no safer space than spiritual community to explore your questions about the what ifs and I don't know how it works and the who's he, what's it questions about all the different things that are going on. This is a place to do that. And the big thing for me when it came to luck was this idea that Reverend Michael spoke to, which was breaking luck into an acronym that says living under cosmic knowledge. Everybody say that for me. Living under cosmic knowledge. How much do you know about the workings of the universe? A friend of mine and I were watching, no tests, I promise. It's like, oh, I'm starting back here already. No, we're all on the same page. There was this Netflix series right now called One Strange Rock. Has anybody watched it? A friend of mine introduced it to me the other day, and I had seen it before. It's amazing. It's Will Smith narrating, and he has this joyous enthusiasm about life, and he's projecting it onto sort of a National Geographic episode. But it's like the coolest National Geographic episode ever, because they've got all of these astronauts who have been in space for days and days and days and days. And of course, they have a completely different experience of what it means to live on Earth now after having been up there. If you've ever hiked to the top of a mountain, anybody ever gone skydiving before? Those things have completely changed my life. Like, sure, I made it, so I was glad that your parachute opened and everything. But more than anything, the concept of what the world looks like is completely different from 20,000 feet in the air with nobody or anything to hold on to. Just like when you're at the top of a mountain, there is a completely different view of the city or the town that you live in. I was remarking to my friend Angela, who's visiting with me. She's a practitioner also at Agape. And we were talking about how all the way out in Los Angeles, there's a street that I drive down on a regular basis. And I never really thought about, I don't really see very far down that street because of the smog and the air pollution in Los Angeles. So this rain and this wind had swept through, and I could see two separate mountain ranges in the distance on a street I drive down on a regular basis. Anybody see how different Los Angeles looked in the last couple of weeks? Are you seeing farther? Just stay with that vision. Don't go back to the other thing which I had to stretch and wrestle off of my mind, which was, God, that's what I'm breathing on. Don't do it. We're just fine. We're doing okay. We're getting better. It was really far. I could see. I felt like I could see 20 miles. When probably in general you could probably see 5. And it was magnificent. It really changed how far and how close everything seemed to me. Just like watching One Strange Rock. The story in the film was, it starts off with an astronaut. He suddenly has a twitch in his eye. He's outside of the space station on a spacewalk, so he's doing some maintenance, and suddenly he's got an irritating itch in his eye, and he can't reach in and grab it. So tears begin to flow. That's natural, right? But he realized, he would recount in the narration, that the tears aren't falling because there's no gravity. So it's pooling up around his eye. And if you've ever had tears, you don't really see well through tears, and suddenly it pools up and it crosses over to his other eye, and he's like, NASA, we have a problem. I'm blind. And they're like, what? You're blind? So he begins to tell the story, and they start talking about air. So eventually you get to this, I'm not ruining it, but you get to this point where he vents the air in his suit, which eventually pulls the accumulated tears out, but it's to activate an awareness of the breath. So then they go into this whole episode and show you all the different places. They show you the people in Peru that live probably the highest altitude that human beings live on the planet is in Peru, and they still don't really live that well. But that's where their community is, and that's where they live. So there's all this stuff, right? There's all these things that you can learn about the earth that nobody talks about. There's like a really cool river that flies over Brazil. They started wondering, how come every time the earth spins, we're looking down on Brazil, we can't see Brazil? It's because of the rainforest. Because the rainforest is so dense and so packed that it's bringing out all of this moisture up on a regular basis. It goes up against the Andes Mountains, smacks the Andes Mountains, and goes all the way back into the soil. And so there's this constant river over this country. It's amazing. I didn't know that before this meeting. I've added to my knowledge. And so I started thinking about this. I know, it's mind-blowing. It's like, oh, I mean, what? Watch it. Who's going to go watch one story? It's interesting. So as you look at this, I want you to then bring this into your awareness about yourself and about your life. We are living under cosmic knowledge. The experience that we are having on this journey is based on how we approach that knowing. So much of this journey in this human existence is, I don't know why I'm angry. I don't know why things are the way they are. I don't know why we haven't gotten over racism. I don't know why we haven't gotten over sexism. I don't know why we're still trying to control people's lives. I don't know. And then you start seeing why things are happening. You start seeing the type of training police officers don't get. That they don't really get the psychological training that will help them process some of the trauma that they're trying to help us go through. It's challenging to do that job, and they're not nearly getting the type of support that they need in order to do what we think they should do, to be as patient as they think they should be, because they go from a suicide attempt to an attempted murder, to a child that's been through some trauma, to a child that might have died, back over to a domestic violence situation, all within about 4 or 5 hours. And they have to have principles and practices in order to release that energy, and they do not have that as a part of their training. So you look at that job, and then you look at another job like a politician. A politician seems like it would be a great job. Things that people, I know, maybe it doesn't seem that way anymore because we kind of know how it goes. But back when we were in junior high school, not high school, junior high school, we were running for class president, we had this idea of like what the country could be. You know, what the promise of America seems to be, and what the promises of just government and democracy and representation seems to be. And it would seem like the idea is really, really good. It would seem like people have needs, people represent those people that have needs, and people will work to build the best society possible. That's just not what politics is, but it would seem like it would be a good thing for somebody to want to do that. There are all of these different areas of life that seem like they could be better. And there are situations that you are experiencing that you could have more of. And what I find a lot of what we're doing now is saying no. We're saying no to the things that we don't want anymore. We're saying, we're saying no to the things that don't feel good. We're saying no to mistreatment of people. There is a big no in the world right now. I don't know how much you observe it, but whether we're talking about politics, whether we're talking about social issues, whether we're talking about the president, whether we're talking about the governor, whether we're talking about doctors and lawyers or attorneys, whatever it is, humanity seems to have a bigger no than it does a yes. And one of the things that I'm inviting us all to take on is to release the no. And I'm not saying that there's not a good purpose for no, that there is not a good time for no, but I believe that it's more important to say yes to the things that we want in our life. That's how we design a world that works for everyone. It's not simply that we want to get rid of the laws that are oppressive. That's not enough. After you've got rid of the thing that is oppressing, you have a vacuum, and life abhors a vacuum. There is always going to be something that comes in to fill it, and so you have to fill it with what you want to say yes to. Everybody say yes. Yes. So if you decide what you want to say yes to, then you can build a world that works for everyone. You can figure out, well, what does it look like for people to really be free? That means we might look at our laws, and we have different kinds of laws in this world, right? Nature has laws. But the laws that we have for nature are descriptive laws. Everybody say descriptive laws.
Descriptive laws.
We have observed the natural laws of the universe by observation. For hours and hours and hours and days and days and days and weeks and weeks and weeks and years and years and years, we figured out something called gravity that astronaut didn't have. And so we came to an understanding of this, and we could prove it out. It had a consistency. It changed at different elevations. It changes in different spaces. But we know that this thing is constant. We even remember that it's like a speed at which gravity flows, because we've dropped things so many times. We probably weren't always measuring the speed of gravity every time we drop something, but we know that this is a natural law. Sowing seeds into the ground, the law of sowing and reaping, is kind of a spiritual principle that we talk about, but we get it from observing natural laws. The amount of water that something needs, the amount of sunlight something needs. These things cause growth. We know what photosynthesis is. We see these things, and we are not telling the plant how it functions. We're not telling the tree how it grows. We observe the tree, we observe the plant, and so we understand that law, and we get the law of sowing and reaping, which is a spiritual principle, from that observation. Yes?
Yes.
So what do? We have that knowledge. So we must move from know, meaning the things that we don't want in our life, to know. You have to gain some knowledge and understanding about the things that you want. If you are struggling financially, and you are struggling to make your ends meet or make financial decisions, and you have not taken the time to study a little deeper the spiritual principles around finance, abundance, plenitude, you're missing out on the knowledge that can help you get through this. Yes, you should have a relationship with the divine presence, but it makes it so much easier for Spirit to work through you if you have studied the concepts and the ideas, so that when it speaks to you, when it speaks through you, you have an access and a reference point for a piece of information that you studied. This is why we study. Study is a spiritual practice. It's not just simply so that we can gain knowledge, but knowledge is important. It's knowing the things that are of use to us. It doesn't matter how good I am at weed whacking if I live in a concrete jungle. We ain't got no weeds. I can be the best weed whacker that ever whacked weeds, but it doesn't matter in a concrete jungle, because what? Maybe a rose grows through concrete. Shout out to my boy Tupac, who I've never met, but I just like saying that. And maybe that's that way, but in general, the principle of what I know should be applicable to my life. Now, there are plenty of things that I know, especially after watching One Strange Rock, that doesn't apply directly to my life in form, but it does in principle. So how do we get to spiritual principles? How do we come up with these ideas of spiritual principles? Well, the wonderful teachers for the hundreds and thousands of years that have observed the world also observed that there was something happening more than the physical. At some point, we have a recognition that there's like an ignition, that there's a spark, and that spark sometimes is inside of us, and that spark is sometimes in creation, and that spark is sometimes when people come together in the silence and we have connection. That spark is sometimes like the stories that I as a man hear, that women, when you live in the same house, certain alignments take place, there's certain rhythms and patterns that you already know what I'm talking about, and I'm not going to be silly enough to try to explain what I only have a little bit of knowledge about. But there's just a connection that we have, and you can't say that that's simply biology. There's more than just the physiology that's happening when people come into communion, when people come together. So what's another example of that? As you think about the things that you say no to, and you look around the world, one of the spiritual principles and ideas that is often said is where your attention goes, anybody know the rest? Power, energy flows. Everything is energy. Everybody say it. Everything is energy. Say it again. Everything is energy. Say it one more time. Everything is energy. And the reason why we say everything is energy is because some of it is potential energy. A brick, if you set it down on the ground, it's not really doing much. Maybe it's bricking. It's just sitting there. It's not rolling. It's not bouncing. But there is energy in that brick. How do you know that? If you were to put something in it, certain kinds of chemicals, you could get a reaction to that brick that might make it dissolve. You might be able to make that brick explode. You can do things to it because it is a mineral, and it's made up of things, and with the right combination of elements, you can change it. The same thing goes with us. If you will give yourself the right elements of knowledge and understanding and wisdom, you can immediately change your life. In fact, I believe that the moment that you have the interest, the desire to change it, you are already a completely different being. Now, you don't think that that's much, just having an idea, but you don't realize how significantly exact you are. The precision that it takes to make you. Not just the chromosomes, but the fact that your parents met, and the fact that your grandparents met, and the fact that you had great-grandparents that may have traveled overseas and over oceans. All of that is a stream of time that has happened so precisely that if any one of these things along the way were changed, you might not be here in this room right now. I was thinking about my journey the other day, and I was married for 3 years, and I was thinking about what if me and my wife had never divorced? I would not be here with you right now. I started to think about all of the relationships in my life that would not exist because I would have been on a completely different pathway. I love my life. I love the journey. I love the opportunity that me and my former wife had to be together. It was what it was, and now this is what it is. And all of this is fodder. All of this is food. All of this is for the meal, for the generating of energy, for the increasing of the expanding universe. And I've been allowed to participate in this particular way. So we get from a no, right? And then we go from the no to develop a knowledge. But the other thing is, spirit is this thing that is mystical. Sometimes people talk it's magical. And it can be a lot to try to understand. It can be a lot to try to understand why we pray for someone in the hospital and why I will say that my prayers are answered even as the person transitions. It is a lot to try to wrap your mind around concepts like that. The idea of praying for a child for years and years and years, and a woman has miscarriage after miscarriage after miscarriage, has a child, and then the child dies at 5 years old. These things happen. There are so many traumatic things that we're trying to figure out, but unless we have a deeper relationship with this thing, we're not going to be able to understand it from our human mind. Here's the thing. Your mind can only function based upon the things that you know. So say this, what do I know? That is the question. Consistently, we must ask ourselves because there is a limit to our knowledge. There is not a limit to the present. Say that. No limit to the present. As you recognize that there's no limit to the present, no matter how many computers we have, they are only as good as those of us who have programmed them. But there has still always been knowledge available to us. The information didn't suddenly appear, we gained it. We gained an understanding as we studied the universe, as we studied paper and pencils. We studied what we could do and make them and manufacture them, how well they write or how well they don't write, how long the paper lasts. Just simply, there are companies and corporations and entire families and lives built on someone's choosing to have a great knowledge about pens, pencils, and paper. Now, what does that do for us? At some point, you go from an idea of a no, which we're replacing with a yes, and we're moving to a know. We want to know things. We want to move from no to know. We want to know things for ourselves. We want to know it so that Reverend Keith doesn't have to tell us, that we know it for ourselves, that Jason doesn't have to tell us, that we know it for ourselves so that our parents don't have to tell us, because at some point in our lives, no matter how close we are to Reverend Keith, no matter how close we are to our parents, no matter how close we are to our spouse, at some point we will be the person that has to know it. We will be the person that has to be able to answer the question for our own selves, especially for someone that might be dealing with depression. If you are regularly dealing with depression, you have a constant opportunity to practice. I know there's a lot going on with depression. You have a constant opportunity to practice. What would I be practicing, Jason? I'm so glad you asked. Principles. What do you know? I'm struggling with whether or not to remain alive. I'm struggling with my connection to people. I'm struggling with how to interact with people. I'm struggling with my children. I'm struggling with the fact that I don't have children. I'm struggling with the life as a divorcee. I'm struggling with my life and being as happily married as I make my Instagram look. And that's a reality. And so the practice becomes, what do I know? I know that I'm more than the thoughts in my head. And if you get anything today, you get that you are more than the thoughts in your head. You are not simply reduced to a thought. Notice how your mind works. Know this. You think things all the time that you do not initiate. So who's in control? Is that God? Is it the universe? Is it the aliens? Puppet mastering our thoughts. But how do you know if you don't explore it? I prefer Twilight Zone, Brian. Thank you. You gotta pay attention to Brian, he's ready. And so you move from know to know, and now you have to develop a relationship with the presence. This presence is constantly seeking you. It's seeking to shine its light through you, but it's also seeking to love you. Yes, you who may have been through 17 foster care situations. You went through 17 foster care situations. Constantly, 17 times, there was a new opportunity, a new opportunity, a new opportunity, a new opportunity, a new opportunity. Now, it's hard for a child to reconcile that, but goodness, isn't it good to be able to stand here right now and say, it is possible to recognize that there were 17 more opportunities that the universe kept giving me, and none of it was about me. They're just new opportunities, new houses, new families. But that's a reality in this country because we have a foster care system. We're not here to judge it right now. What we're here is to recognize what we can recognize. What can we know in the midst of all of the difficulties in this world? What can we know in the midst of all of the challenging changes that are going on in our own mind? We can know these principles. We can get to know this presence. Ways to get to know the presence. Just be still. Just be still. Don't try to go to a meditation retreat. Wait, before you go to the meditation retreat, just be still. Before you leave your house, just be still. Like right now, close your eye. Just be still. Feel your own heart beating. Something loved you so much that it's beating your heart for you right now. Just allow yourself to breathe. Something, whatever you want to call it, God, Spirit, Jehovah, Allah, the endless question, the universe. It's breathing you right now. Open your eyes, come back. But just like that, how do you feel? There's a something that can happen. First thing, just be still. And the other things, write down your questions. What you don't know, write it down. Find a journal, find a book, write those questions down. And when you're ready, you don't have to do it right now. When you're ready, choose to go answer those questions. Choose to explore. It's not even to suggest or to say that you're going to find the absolute end of those questions, but you're going to be able to remove the things that you don't know as you explore and come into a greater understanding of what you know. It's so accessible to you. The third thing that you can do, other than be still, other than write down your questions, is engage in community. Soul Center is a beautiful community that is vibrant, that is growing. I think this might be the most rows I've ever seen in here. This community is expanding. We're going to be all the way to the back wall at some point. Then we're going to be in another building. And then we're going to be in a bigger building. We're going to do so much as this community. But here's the thing. Human beings were designed to be in community. The technology right now is creating more separation. We're designed for contact. Sometimes coming to Soul Center is the only time somebody might get a hug. Sometimes coming to Soul Center, the person works from home, or they're working in a very static, stiff environment. They have to maintain a particular veneer. They may not hug and high five. You may not know anything about the children of your coworkers now. Everything's so different than when my father was employed for Los Angeles Unified School District. It's just so different. And socially, we go through technology, the competition between likes and not likes, and glossy pictures and duck lips and all the kind of stuff that's going on. I mean, it's just a thing, right? Brandon, no to the duck lips. Ask one of the young kids. You go from no to know. And then you move into a knowing of the knower. It is up to you to develop this personal, intimate relationship with the presence. I don't think he did that on purpose. I was like, I missed it. Did I say something? That must have been good. I didn't hear myself. But you move from know to know, and you move into knowing the knower. The presence knows you. It shaped you. It formed you. Be encouraged that no matter how difficult it may seem, there's still another day. And yes, that next day may be filled with the same routine, but you get to change it right now. Nobody says that you can't start the day with your favorite song in the whole world. Nobody says that you can't start the day with your favorite meal in the whole world. Some of us can't start the day the way we used to, so we have to reinvent ourselves. Maybe we were used to starting the day with our favorite person in the whole world, and they're not here anymore. Not in the physical. But there's nothing to say that we still can't connect. We can connect with our loved ones on the other side. We connect with our loved ones on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, even without the conversation, because it's not limited simply to this physical body. As we open up ourselves and avail ourselves to that connection, we develop an awareness of life. We know the knower. We know God. We know Spirit in such a way that there is no way we can be talked out of it. No matter how the events of our day go, no matter how many funerals, no matter how many memorial services, no matter how many mass shootings, no matter how many people who are dealing with the drug addiction epidemic, no matter how many of those things that happen, there's still more joy, there's still more love, there's still more opportunity for laughter, there's still funny movies being made by funny people, there's still crazy things being done by crazy people, there's still just a wonderful life that is available if we will receive it. We just have to take the opportunity to do that, and I just want to know if you're willing. Are you willing? Yes. When are you going to do it? Yes. I don't know if I believe you. Are you willing? Yes. When are you going to do it? Yes. Is it possible? Yes. When is it going to happen? Yes. Thank you so much. So we just want to take a quick moment to turn within. And just centering our heart and our moments in our knowing of the knower. You don't have to know everything about the present, even with your questions. If you can acknowledge that you know that you don't know something, there's still an opening and an availability. So in gratitude, in joy, we access our availability on today. How grateful I am for this day and for all that we are going through. For the seeming highs and the seeming lows and the questions and the answers, I just bless it all. I'm knowing that the freedom that we have been calling for, that our soul has been calling for us to live, has been liberated in our consciousness today. That the opportunity for more love, more joy, more peace, more beauty, more creativity, more opportunity, more plenitude, more abundance, more of life is happening now as we have healed the limited ideas of separation, division, otherness, that we may have unknowingly accepted. We release them into our sacred yes, declaring that this is the day that life itself has made. We rejoice and are glad in it. We simply declare that it is so by saying, and so it is. So it is. Amen. Amen. So as we go into the next opportunity in our service, it's our offering time. And so take a moment to prepare your offering. And here's what I also want to charge you with too. begin to prepare your offering sort of the way parents, you know how you pack your kid's baby bag before you leave the house? You know how those of you that are going on vacation and retreat, you know how you pack your vacation bags and all your toiletries and everything? I want you to have that same sort of preparation in mind as you start coming to Soul Center, as you prepare, because this is your sacred opportunity, something that you set aside for your love of Soul Center. And maybe this is a new practice, maybe this is a new way to be, but it is a beautiful way to honor not just what you have worked for and what you've earned, but the community that you are giving your life and your love to, your resources. I thank you for that now.